Hello, everyone, and welcome to the State Champ Studio 4. We're going to start this week off with the draw. Elizabeth Coon here with Emma Kuehl, and Sean Baligian and Greg Durham are going to be joining us later on in the show. But we want to get to some games that we got to see last week, some really good matchups. Let's start off with Cranbrook and Bloomfield. Cranbrook got the win 11-3, but they lost the next matchup against the reigning champs, Brighton.
Yep, so Cranbrook, a lot of talented players on this team. Layla Lantigua, Trinity Doherty, highly skilled. I think the Bloomfield game was a good matchup for them, a good opener for them. Brighton, however, just, took it to them. I think Brighton's depth really overwhelmed them. Looking ahead for Cranbrook, I think they play a pretty tough schedule, and they have some good out-of-state teams on that schedule. So they'll bounce back. I think it's a matter of figuring out who they are this year as a team and restructuring their identity from last year.
Yeah.
But a lot of talent on that team. So I would expect them to kind of remain, just outside of the top 10, if not sneaking back in at some point. I look forward to watching them play.
Yeah, and like you said, they just dropped out of your top 10 rankings. They were in the rankings last week. What's it going to take to get back in it?
Big wins. They're playing Marion tomorrow, I believe it is. And Marion's put up some pretty good offensive numbers this year. So I'm excited to see how Cranbrook responds to that in terms of restructuring their defense. That's what it takes. It takes wins to get back into that top 10. I think they can do it. I think they're just going to have to buckle down and kind of figure out what's going to work best for them with the personnel that they have. Excited to see how they end up.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit about it, but the strength of the schedule, how important is that throughout the season?
The strength of schedule is huge. I think it provides the best test in terms of seeing where you are as a team and really testing yourself against the best of the best. So, we love playing games where it's a little bit easier. The coaches, we can get everyone in, but when it all comes down to it, you want to know where you are as a group. So playing the top teams is really helpful in terms of figuring out what you need to work on to be successful.
Yeah, and talk about a really good matchup. Spring Lake, they took on Forest Hills Northern Eastern. Hey, a big one in overtime. Forest Hills Northern Eastern was able to get that win.
Yeah, huge game early on in the season. I love to see it. These West Side teams, they play each other a lot. It's really tough, so my heart goes out to them. But both teams, however, are just looking incredibly fast. The athletes that they have, were moving the ball up and down the field with speed. Defense was really stepping up on both teams. I saw Spring Lake had some really good caused turnovers, some nice checks. At the end of the day, the Bird Dogs just got it done. Credit to them and the hard work there. So it's definitely going to, adjust the rankings a little bit heading into the next week.
Yeah, and these are two teams that are in your rankings. What do you think moving forward for them? What is going to be some of the challenges to stay there?
Again, it's just they play really hard schedules out there. That's kind of the hub of women's lacrosse, in the state right now. Keep battling, keep, trying to beat the tough teams. Luckily they are in separate divisions. So I think at the end of the day, when it comes to postseason, that will help them. Just keep doing what you're doing. Try to get that win back. I think they do face each other again at some point in the regular season. So it'll be exciting to see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited for that. Heartland, huge win over Northville. They got the win 14-3. Two girls who scored 5 goals each.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yep, huge. And Northville's a really athletic and a really deep team in terms of their bench size. And Heartland, last year, I think, was a little bit of an off year for them, but a great coach there, a great group of girls, really talented lacrosse players, and solid kind of, I call it end-to-end athletes that can just run, for a full game. They creep into the top 10. They had a win over Hazlitt as well last week. So that, again, really shows that they're here and they're here to establish themselves as a top 10 team. So I'm really excited to watch Heartland this year.
And before we get into a little bit more of your rankings, hey, we got some big news in the lacrosse world. The state championship is going to be played at U of M. Just how big is that?
It's amazing. Like, I almost fell out of my chair when I heard the news. And honestly, I didn't believe it until I saw MHSAA update their website to reflect such, because the boys got updated first, then the girls went. This is amazing news. This is huge. This is where our student athletes athletes deserve to be
Yeah.
for the finals. A huge thank you to MHSAA for making this happen. Even bigger thank you to the coaches. They've been pushing for this for years, 4 years. So, it's finally happening. So I do expect every single person to be there.
Yes.
Let's push for a sellout crowd to really celebrate high school lacrosse in the state. It's going to be a great weekend. The weather's going to be perfect. I already know.
Yep.
It's a really great sign of the commitment level from MHSAA to bring our sport to the forefront. And as you can tell, I'm over the moon about it. So I look forward to that weekend.
Yeah, and just what kind of excitement does that bring to teams across the state?
It's awesome. It gives them something to strive for.
Yeah.
To play on that stage, and U of M Stadium is one of the best lacrosse stadiums in the country, in my opinion. And, it's a great size to, really fill up the stands and have that championship, have that elite atmosphere with, all the bells and whistles that go along with U of M facilities. Yeah. So, it's great. I think it gives our student athletes, just a little bit extra incentive to really battle it out to get to that point for the weekend. So, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and how does that help continue to grow this sport? We've already seen it grown a lot so far, but this is just going to boost it even more.
It will, and not only within the state, out of the state. It's again, U of M has amazing facilities. It's a great platform for our student athletes to compete on. So yeah, it's just going to really up the level of professionalism that we're bringing to our sport, and I think really help catapult us, again, onto that national level.
Yeah, and talking about great teams, we're super excited to check in with your top 10 this week. We saw some movement in the top 10. We talked a little bit about Spring Lake earlier, but they made the jump from the 9th spot to the 4th spot with a big win over Rockford.
Yep, Spring Lake definitely takes a jump up in the rankings over there with their win over Rockford. And, we see some shuffling around in other places, but, Heartland definitely enters the ranking with the solid win over Hazlitt, an early season win. So I look forward to seeing those two teams battle it out even more. Cranbrook does drop down. They're just on the outside looking in at number 11. Again, opportunities certainly to get back in with their strength of schedule. But, right now I think we're still in kind of that early season, early battles. This coming week is a huge week for women's lacrosse in the state. So I think we'll know a little bit more and have a little bit clearer idea of who's going to be where, heading into next week. Yeah,
and Heartland, like we said, making their way in the top 10. What really made you bring them into the conversation?
I just from their history in the state, I do think, again, last year was kind of an off year for them. But I think that, now that Coach has a couple seasons under her belt there, and with the athletes and the talent and the lacrosse that they have there, I do think that they're going to make a comeback. So, again, I'm excited to see what they bring. Yeah,
it'll be exciting to see the switches that go on in the top 10 throughout the season. We're excited for it. And there's some pretty big matchups coming up. Huge. What are some of the ones that you're looking forward to?
So this coming weekend is the East versus West play day out at East Grand Rapids, and all the top teams are going to be there. So if you're out there, please go and watch, especially my younger players. It's going to be a great opportunity to see some really high quality lacrosse. So, while it's a play day, and in my mind, play days are a little bit more just for fun than a regular season game, again, it'll still be a good test for some of these schools, especially some like Detroit Country Day, who they really haven't played yet. So it'll be a good opportunity for them to see where they are and break the ice a little bit. Yeah, we're excited to see all the highlights from those games, get all the scores, and we'll make sure we bring all the recaps here to you guys next week. We're going to kick it over to Sean Baligian now with Faceoff.
Hey, thank you, ladies, and love what you're doing on the W. Guys, make sure you check out the fine work that is happening on the W. But this is Face Off. My name is Sean Baligian, along with my pal, the coach, Coach Durham. And Coach, first things first, it was a fantastic week. I mean, look, anytime CC and Brother Rice get together, you know that we're going to talk about that. But first things first, how was the trip to Toronto for the boys?
It was great. The big thing that you got to understand is that when we do these things, where I have, the capability of being at a school where I can take the kids away on an overnight, I decided, hey, we're going to go to Toronto this year. We haven't been to Toronto since 2019. So I set up a game with St. Michael's College Prep, which is right outside downtown Toronto, and right next to them is Upper Canada College, another beautiful school. We went and played both those teams. We played, it's a different style game, a lot of different variations of things, but it was a great experience for us. We may not have been as successful as we wanted to be, but the trip itself was about bonding, getting together as a team, hanging out in the hotel. The boys, we walked around like Chinatown in Toronto area. We walked to the Hockey Hall of Fame. They went to the Hockey Hall of Fame. We went to the Eaton Center. Had lunch. They could have their own choice of anything that's there. There's so many different flares of any style food, and it was just a great experience culturally for them to see a town that many of them had never been. I do have some hockey players that have seen Toronto several times, but they love the town. It's a great town. It's a great town to walk. It was a little brisk, but that's typical, Canadian weather there. So in Ontario, but it was a great experience for everybody. It's a quick trip. It's 4 hours there, 4 hours back. But overall, it was a great experience for the guys.
You and I have talked about this a few times over the years, Coach, but for the benefit of people out there that aren't aware of this, the game of lacrosse is massive to Canadians, absolutely massive. I don't think the average human being understands, and some very prominent hockey players are huge lacrosse fans. I like what you said when we had a conversation a couple days ago, Coach. You said they were cousins, and then you said, nah, they're probably brothers. I think that's how you would really associate
right?
those two. Yeah, maybe stepbrothers. No, really, I mean, they're very similar. So many players play each sport, but it is huge in Canada as a whole.
I think overall, my experience playing when I played college, I played with some Canadians, some of the guys I played with. I would go over to Windsor and play box with those guys. That's their true game. Actually, box lacrosse is Canada's national sport.
Yep.
They won't tell you that because hockey's kind of their king. It's kind of like baseball and football here, I guess the best way to say it, where baseball is our national sport, but football is kind of the king of sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, lacrosse and hockey is like that. The box game is awesome to watch. It's very physical. It's very similar to the hockey. It's actually a lot rougher. I mean, cross-checking is legal. You can have moving screens. It's a lot different than the field game. But the great thing about the box game is the stick skills. Unbelievable stick skills. You're catching everything in tight. You're making quick shots. The goal's smaller. It's 4x4 rather than 6x6. It's just a different game. But the field, a lot of those kids transfer to the field game. As a matter of fact, you see some of the best players in the world are all Canadians. Yeah. And matter of fact, every time you look at the world championships, it's always U.S. versus Canada, And then third is Iroquois Nation, the Haudenosaunee, and then Australia is usually the fourth one. But those are the big two. It's always going to be that way. It's our sport. I mean, it's both countries' sport pretty much. And coming from that aspect, you see the Canadians how they play the game. They play a different brand. They're pretty physical, and both games were physical for us. But we expected that going in, and we held our own. We played fine. We just didn't come out victorious. But it was a great way to start. Both programs are very respectful. They're run by great guys. They're great coaches there. They'll return the favor next year when they come back to Michigan and play a bunch of teams in Detroit.
A lot of teams, this is that time of year, Coach. I mean, at least the weather has been nicer the last few days. Hopefully it sticks around. That's always a factor. Another factor that teams have to deal with, spring break. And it's interesting how different teams deal with it because, let's face it, there's no uniform spring break. It comes here for some, it comes there for some, and you just have to deal with it.
Yeah, you're dealing with like 3 different spring breaks. I think the West Side has a different spring break. The private schools or Catholic schools have a different spring break. Theirs is usually right around Easter. And then certain schools have 2 weeks off. Like Catholic Central had 2 weeks off. Though they're accountable. They hold them accountable. You get a couple days and you got to come back to practice, and then they travel a little bit here and there. We have 10 days off. So I give my guys 6 days for them and their families or what they're going to do, and then we go back to practice, and then we went to Canada. Some schools just give their kids the whole week. The thing is that it's just a breakup of their skill and their mentality. It's really difficult. When I was at Northville, it's just an automatic thing for kids to go on spring break. You live in Northville. You know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. It's like everybody goes on spring break, and it's fine. I get it. But it takes a whole week or maybe, 3, 4, 5 days to get them back on track, get them remotivated to play the season. And that's just part of spring sports. It's all the sports. They all have to deal with it. Lacrosse is no different. So that's what we try to do. We try to, make sure that we have games going on. We keep them busy. We usually give them agendas, what they can do on spring break, routines. I tell them to take their stick if they can. You always want to not lose a step, but maintain that step. And then when we come back, we're ready to go.
Thanks again for joining us here along with the coach, Greg Durham. My name is Sean Baligian. And Coach, as I mentioned, some big games around the state this past week. But let's face it, when Brother Rice and Catholic Central get together, I think the entire state kind of turns their head, depending on what part of the state you're at, to kind of see what's going on in that one. It didn't disappoint. Once again, that's what happens when those two titans get together. But Brother Rice finishes on top by a score of 16-10.
So I talked to a couple coaches about the game. I talked to their assistant, Stan Seidel. And I asked them, hey, how would the game go? Because I didn't get to see it. Obviously, we had a game, the same Catholic League plays their games on Tuesdays. I was we were in Toledo playing St. Francis de Sales. The CC Rice game is this. They're going to be playing probably 3 times. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't think anybody except maybe Country Day, who's in Division II, could run with them right now. I just don't see anything else. You see what's going on in the state. There's really 3 teams, and 2 of them are Division I, and one's CC, one's Rice. Rice got the better of them this week. They pulled it out in the fourth quarter. It was like a 10-10 tie, I think, or a 9-9 tie at one point. And then I think Rice has got the best of it and kind of just ran with it. The crazy thing is that you're going to, like I said, you're going to see them in probably the Catholic League Championship, and you're probably going to see them in the state championship head to head. 2 giants, 2 teams that run similar offenses, 2 teams that have similar goalie types, 2 teams that have probably similar defensive players. They're very balanced. Maybe the difference is the face-off. I think that Rice got a little bit better of them this week, but, CC's face-off guy holds her own as well. It's just going to go back and forth. I think CC had one of their starting defensemen got hurt in the first or second quarter, and then another guy got, a concussion protocol, from what I understand. But, that's part of the game. It happens. But I tell you what, both teams have unbelievable midfielders. I mean, we're not talking 2. We're talking 4 midfielders aside that can just dominate. And that's what's great about these 2 teams is you're going to see battles throughout the whole year.
Another one that we wanted to let people know about in case they haven't heard yet. Boy, this just sounded like an epic matchup. Double overtime, if I'm not mistaken, Coach, between Heartland and Lake Orion. 2 quality teams with a heck of a lot of talent out there for both squads.
Yeah, there's going to be 2 names that we're going to hear about in the upcoming weeks here, especially with, the Warrior, top 10 is in the Warrior Player of the Year. You're going to hear about Drew Lockwood, who I think had 5 goals in this game. I mean, that's just sick. I mean, he's one of the best midfielders in the state. He continuously dominates. And then you're going to hear about Andrew Parker, all right, who dominated he plays attack for Lake Orion. He has one of the best coaches in his corner there, Ron Hebert, and he had a heck of a game. I think he had 4 goals and 6 assists. And he scored the last 2 goals to tie the game, to get it to overtime. It went to double overtime, and then Heartland obviously pulled it away with the game winner. But fantastic game. I mean, that's just the kind of games you want to hear about. 2 really good teams that might have a run for that state championship. They're going to be 2 of the teams that we're going to see at the end. I think we're going to see, right now, I envision hopefully you see a Lake Orion or you see a Heartland in that top 4 when it comes to the semifinals. That's a long way away.
Yeah, oh, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. But on, I guess, the heels of that, Coach, let's take a look at the top 10. And for those of you that are perhaps just joining us, I think what Coach Durham decided to do is just make a top 10, and everybody's top 10 is different, regardless of division. Coach, taking a look at these rankings, I have a feeling, much like our Player of the Year list that we'll get to in a moment, don't be surprised if you see some names coming in and out of there with the slew of good teams in the state.
So, we had the top 3 like the other day. I bumped Forest Hill Central down a couple notches. I bumped them to 6th. They just haven't. They're going to start playing some teams this week. They're playing Country Day. That's coming up this Saturday. That is going to be a monster game. That is the state title last year. Forest Hill Central got the better half of Country Day, but I'm telling you what, Country Day looks pretty good. So that is going to be a fantastic game. I left East Grand Rapids there. I put Heartland. They're 2-0. They just played Lake Orion. I put Lake Orion at 7th. I mean, they don't deserve to be ahead of Heartland, but I think they deserve to be there. I got Grand Rapids Catholic Central. They're 4-0. I can't take them out yet. They haven't lost. Birmingham is 3-0. And then, Grand Ledge, who I'll see this weekend, I'll see the real deal. They've got they probably have the best face-off guy in the state, and they probably have one of the best ex-attackmen in the state. And I'm looking forward to seeing them play as we host them on Saturday. But, there's a lot of teams that I'm actually starting to see rise a little bit, and I'm sure we're going to see them break that top 10. Brighton, I look at Brighton as a team that I played early. It was a great game. I think we lost 12-9. But Brighton's a solid team. Forest Hills Eastern and Forest Hills Northern are both really solid teams. They have really good players. Rockford, all 3 of those are West Side state games, right? They're all teams. I'm sorry, West Side state teams. Just solid lacrosse. All 3 of those places, and then you got Clarkston. Brian Kamiskas tells me, he always tells me the game. We're all going to be okay. Come on, Brian. You are playing some good ball right now, man. I like what I see. So, that's our last home game of the year is against Clarkston. I love that's a great rivalry. Like I said, Brian and I have a good relationship. But I tell you what, it's really nice to see a lot of these teams starting to rise. And you're going to see other ones too. I'm just going to hold on to those next week and see how they do this week. But I'll tell you what, it's pretty exciting in boys lacrosse right now. It's starting to roll.
Some great teams and obviously a just incredible group of players in this state as well. Makes it hard each and every week to come up with a top 10 list. We're going to take a look at our Warrior Player of the Year top 10 list. And I'm going to tell you again, if you're new to the show, what you see now is going to change. I promise you, it may change as early as next week. This is a fluid list. You're going to see names jump off. Sometimes the name can jump back in as well. We've seen that happen, Coach, certainly in hockey and in lacrosse as well. But this is the way our list looks right now.
Yeah, I like the list right now. We haven't made any changes from last week. But there's some guys that are really stepping up, and they're going to rise to the occasion. And like I said, we saw 2 guys earlier we talked about from Lake Orion and from Heartland. They don't have anybody on there, and they're good teams. They have some great players. So hopefully we'll get them on there, and then we'll see maybe some other kids too. Like I'm going to tell you something right now. Like teams like Country Day and Rice and CC, they got a couple other guys too that could be on there. But let's see how everything pans out. Let's see how the votes go, and then we'll reevaluate this week.
There is our criteria. We swear by it. And, you mentioned a couple of guys earlier in that Heartland and Lake Orion game. Level of competition, your big game performances, guys that show up in those quote-unquote big games, yeah, that's definitely going to get you a bump. So that's something to keep an eye on and be aware of. And, Coach, I always say this is where the fans can be a big part of it. Go to our website, vote early, vote often, get your guy in. And again, the leading vote getter in this process automatically goes into our Final Four. That's the power that you have. So make sure you go to our website, vote early, vote often, and you can let your voice be heard. At the end of the year, we'll have a conversation about it. We'll come up with our Final Four, so to speak, and then when it's all said and done, we will award the 2024 Warrior Lacrosse Player of the Year award. And I can't thank our friends from Warrior enough for being a part of this. Coach, you already mentioned a couple games on the docket. I know for you this weekend, a couple really big games, but let's take a look around the state. I say it all the time. I love when we see East Side, West Side matchups. I love it. I wish we'd see more of that across the state in all sports, but a couple dandies this week, Coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I put your school, Livonia Stevenson. We're hosting them on Friday night. So, if you want to make it out, check a game out. We're going to be playing Livonia United. They're actually really athletic, pretty talented. I'm looking forward to hosting them. It's kind of funny. My daughter goes there, and so it's a pretty cool thing. But hey, I want to play different teams as much as I can, so we can see what they're all about. Country Day has a weekend in Grand Rapids. They play Forest Hills Northern on Friday night, and then they play Forest Hills Central on Saturday afternoon. That is the game right there, I think. The other game is, I believe Heartland is playing at East Grand Rapids. That is another great game. And then finally, if you're local in the Detroit area and you want to watch a game, go watch St. X out of Cincinnati play Brother Rice. That game is, you were talking about some players right there. I'm telling you, it's going to be one of the better games around. You can't ask for more. And Rice, they had a great week. Talking about spring break, they went to Illinois. They beat Wheaton Academy, which is one of the top programs in the Midwest, and they lost to St. Viator out of Illinois as well, North Chicago. And those two teams are fantastic. And I'll tell you what, it's only going to make teams like Rice even better to play the best competition in the Midwest.
Great stuff. Love every second of it. Hey, what are the game times for you? Come on, I'm going to give you a little love. What are the game times?
I think we play Livonia 7:00 p.m. on the red turf, and then we play at 3 p.m. against Grand Ledge. And if you want to see one of the best face-off guys, come watch them. He's pretty darn good. So
I can give you a shout out. One of the most picturesque, beautiful campuses you'll ever see.
Yes, yeah.
The legendary red turf. What more needs to be said about the legendary red turf? So, Coach, it's always a pleasure. What was that, Coach? I'm sorry.
People hate it. It's tough to adjust. So.
I love it. I think it's great.
I like it.
I always had fun calling the football games there, and certainly would love to do some lacrosse stuff in the future as well, although you couldn't be my color guy. You're a little busy. But, Coach, always a pleasure. Again, I want to tell all of you out there, you can be a part of our Player of the Year. Go to our website. We'll put that information up for you. Go to the website and vote and be a part of the Warrior Player of the Year competition. Kevin, can't thank you enough behind the scenes. He really is the engine that makes us go. Coach, glad you had a great trip to Toronto. Best of luck to you and the boys this weekend and everybody out there.
State Champs Face-Off and the Draw is presented by Lawrence Technological University. Be curious, make magic. Face-Off and the Draw is also brought to you by the Michigan High School Athletic Association, promoting the value and values of educational athletics. The Michigan Army National Guard, a proud sponsor of the MHSAA. Warrior Lacrosse, Michigan-based, Michigan-built. Visit warrior.com. And the Detroit Athletic Club Foundation's Michigan High School Male and Female Athlete of the Year Award.